Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on the Two Noble Kinsmen, and we get to hear from the jailer's daughter again today in another scene, Act 3, Scene 4, where she is the entire scene. Just her monologuing is the entire scene. But yesterday we heard from her in Act 3, Scene 2, where she had gone back out into the woods because she had a file and food and all that sort of stuff to bring to Palamon, but she couldn't find Palamon, and she was hearing like wolves howling and stuff like that, so she convinced herself that Palamon is dead at this point, and she's very sad about that and doesn't know where to go, and is pretty convinced that her father is going to be hanged for letting Palamon escape from jail. And that was Act 3, Scene 2. So she's in a good headspace. She also hasn't eaten or slept in at least 2 days, maybe longer than that. So yeah, she's in a really healthy spot. So Act 3, Scene 3, remember we have Arcite and Palamon. They ran into each other in Act 3, Scene 1 when Palamon overheard Arcite talking about how great his life is right now, and Palamon came out and basically challenged Arcite to a duel, but said that he needed food and clothing and a sword and his shackles cut off before he'd be able to effectively fight. And Arcite's like, okay, fine, calm down, we'll fight, and I'll bring you all that stuff. So Act 3, Scene 3, we're back in the part of the woods, or, right outside Athens, where Palamon has been hiding, which is not where the jailer's daughter thought that he was going to be hiding. We're back there, and Arcite has brought food and a file to take off the shackles, and he's brought wine, and he brought some clothes, all that sort of thing. He brings it back to Palamon, and he's like, here you go, here's all this stuff. And Palamon's like, you might be poisoning me. And Arcite's like, yeah, I might, but I'm not. So how about we just have dinner? Let's just eat some food, and neither of us is allowed to talk about Emilia while we're having dinner. And Palamon's like, okay, fine. So they cut his shackles off, and they start eating, and they start reminiscing. Because remember, these two guys at the beginning of the play, they were very close. They'd grown up together. They, even up into the point where they were in prison, they're like, all this is fine as long as you're there with me. So while they're eating, they start reminiscing about some of their escapades prior to this war that they had to fight, and they start talking about some of their previous female conquests, which eventually brings them back around to Emilia. I think Arcite sighs or something like that, and Palamon's like, that sigh was for Emilia, so now we have to fight, and blah, blah, blah. And Arcite's like, okay, cool, calm yourself down. Fine, I'll go get a sword and some armor for you and come back, and then we can fight. And so he goes off to get that, and that's Act 3, Scene 3. So Act 3, Scene 4, we come back to the jailer's daughter, and she's still wandering around the forest by herself. She still hasn't eaten or slept or probably even drank anything in days. And she says, I am very cold. And all the stars are out too, the little stars, and all that look like aglets. The sun has seen my folly. Palamon! Oh, alas, no! He's in heaven. Where am I now? Yonder's the sea, and there's a ship. How it tumbles, and there's a rock lies watching underwater. Now. It beats upon it now. There's a leak sprung, a sound one, how they cry. Upon her before the wind, you'll lose all else. Up with a course or two, and take about, boys. Good night. Good night. You're gone. I am very hungry. Would I could find a fine frog. He would tell me news from all parts of the world. Then I would make a carrack of a cockle shell and sail by east and northeast to the king of pygmies, for he tells fortunes rarely. Now my father, 20-1, is trussed up in a trice. Tomorrow morning, I'll say never a word. For I'll cut my green coat a foot above my knee, and I'll clip my yellow locks an inch below mine eye. Hey, nonny, nonny, nonny. He's by me a white cut forth for to ride, and I'll go seek him through the world that is so wide. a prickna like a nightingale to put my breast against. I shall sleep like a top else. So the jailer's daughter is still in kind of a pathetic state. She's maybe lost her mind a little bit, and there's bits of this that might even venture into Ophelia territory. Because she's wandering around, she's cold and she's hungry and she's looking at the stars and she's calling for Palamon and remembers that he's dead, and she is convinced that her father is going to be hanged, and she imagines herself by the sea and imagines that she sees a shipwreck by the sea, and then she sings this little song, which that's not actually the melody of the song. I totally just made that up, and I apologize for how weird it sounded. But she just sings this sort of little nonsense song, and then once again she wishes that she could die, because that would make everything easier. And that's Act 3, Scene 4. So, yeah, it's kind of, we're sort of in the silly part of the play where she just declines and declines and declines, and Arcite and Palamon keep having these encounters that border on contentious but then are also kind of polite, and yeah, it's just fun stuff. Anyway, come on back tomorrow for more, and we're gonna see what happens. Do we ever get out of the silly part of the play? And what happens to all of these people? And do Arcite and Palamon actually fight? Does the jailer's daughter find civilization again at some point? I mean, these are all questions that need to be answered. So I'll see you tomorrow for more. Mwah.